So with that being said, we're going to kick off today with a panel of international umpires, and Perry Barber is our moderator. And for those who don't know, Perry's been an umpire for 40 plus years, umpiring at every level of the game and all over the world. She's advocated for umpires. She advocates for women in every aspect of the game and in every possible way that she can. In 2018, Perry was our Dorothy Seymour Mills Lifetime Achievement Award winner. She is on the board for the IWBC, advisor for Baseball for All. She has worked in everything from Met Spring Training to the Baseball for All Nationals, and the list goes on and on. Runs clinics, etc. So I'm going to turn it over to Perry and let her introduce her wonderful group that she has for us. So Perry, it's all yours.
Thanks, Leslie. And thank you everybody for being here on a Saturday morning for many of us, but for Sophiyah and Eva, it is very late over in Taiwan and Hong Kong. So thank both of you particularly, and also to Jadriga, who is joining us from Uganda. That is 7 hours ahead of us. So if any of you can give us some, tips on who's going to be winning baseball games tonight, let us know, will you please? Eva, do we have you? Are you still here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure because I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Eva umpires in Hong Kong, where because of the sheer lack of geographical space, baseball fields are few and far between. She has to navigate the double whammy of having severely limited opportunities to umpire at home, as baseball is a Sunday-only sport in Hong Kong. They only play on Sundays. And she is among the usual only woman in the local umpiring association quandary that so many of us function under still in 2021. Despite these obstacles, Eva has achieved a level of umpiring excellence that makes her eligible to work International World Baseball Softball Confederation. That's WBSC from now on. WBSC sanctioned baseball events. She's umpired the Women's World Cups in Japan and Korea, the Women's Asian Games in China, the U12 World Cup in Taiwan, and the Phoenix Cup in Hong Kong, which is, I think, where you and I first met, Eva, working the Phoenix Cup. Right. Yes. So she's one of three women to umpire the university games in Taiwan. And because of the paucity of opportunities for her to umpire in Hong Kong, she's worked extra hard to earn invitations to umpire abroad in places as far-flung as Guam, Taiwan, Indonesia, and Singapore. I think you've been more places than I have, and that's saying a lot. Eva's extensive experience umpiring baseball all over the world makes her uniquely qualified to talk about the process of umpire selection for international tournaments and the more meta experience of establishing her umpiring bona fides with so few places and opportunities to work baseball on her home territory. If the narrative of many women umpires often reads like a bad cliche in a made-for-TV movie where everyone dismisses and obstructs the lead character's dreams, except for the lead character, who inevitably prevails and changes the world for the better, Eva Mu is the avatar of persistence, perseverance, and dedication to the craft of umpiring that we all need and love to hear from. So thank you, Eva. Next up, Sophiyah, who is Po Chun Liu in her homeland of Taiwan, where she is a genuine celebrity because she has her hands in so many interesting areas. She is the 2019 winner of the prestigious International Olympic Committee, the IOC. That's the highest amateur sport organization there is. She is the winner of the IOC's Women in Sport World Trophy. She's been named by Forbes magazine as one of the most powerful women in international sports. And she's a member of the Global Sports Mentoring Program, which is a partnership between the United States Department of State, pretty impressive, the University of Tennessee, and ESPNW. Sophiyah is the first Taiwanese woman to umpire international baseball, and the list of top-tier tournaments on her resume is many pages long and very impressive. She made her international umpiring debut at the 2010 Women's World Cup in Venezuela, where she called games in front of totally baseball bonkers crowds of tens of thousands, which was in pretty stark contrast to the 2018 Women's World Cup in Viera, Florida, where crowds of more like tens watched Sophiyah umpire while she was wearing a sling, because she wouldn't find out that her arm was broken until after the tournament was over. That's how much of a mensch Sophiyah is. Among her other superpowers, she is a determined and vocal advocate for women's rights in arenas beyond baseball. She's developed a series of workshops working with the Taiwanese government and private corporations that focus on ways to help girls identify and dispel gender barriers on university campuses. She speaks publicly about combating domestic violence and sexual exploitation, which are subjects that a lot of us have to deal with, but don't get as much attention and discussion as they should, because women. And she is a staunch advocate for women's empowerment through sport. Very important. She founded the Taiwan Women's Sports Association, which offers guidance and scholarships to young female students who want to develop their athletic skills. With all of those accomplishments on the field, Sophiyah is also a published author of 6 books, and she is currently studying for her PhD in religious studies at National Chengchi University in Taiwan. She also rescues dogs. And I don't know what to say after that. You probably get the idea. She is a force of nature, a natural phenomenon, and she rescues dogs. So Sophiyah, thank you for being here with us today. It is almost midnight where you are, so your being here is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Try not to turn into a pumpkin before we finish, okay? Thank you. Lisa, my buddy Lisa, my snake oil guzzling buddy Lisa. I know that's apocryphal. You didn't drink the snake oil, I did, but I started that rumor years ago, so you're stuck with it now. It's part of your mythology. So you and I drank snake oil at the Taipei late night market, and we won't tell anybody what happened after that. So Lisa is a world-class international umpire of great renown from Burlington, Ontario, but it is her job as elementary school teacher in the Canadian public school system that means at least as much to her as the numerous awards and accolades she's received during her 40-year umpiring career. Just as Amanda Clement's career began, anybody familiar with Amanda Clement? Her image is in the Hall of Fame. She umpired in the early part of the 20th century. And just as her career began when an umpire didn't show up for her brother's baseball game, so Lisa was conscripted into donning the gear for her brother's t-ball game, and she's never looked back. She's been to 23 Baseball Canada National Championships as either umpire or supervisor of umpires, including 3 senior men's championships. She was the recipient of the Ontario Intercounty Baseball League and Baseball Canada's Dick Willis Memorial Award, given to Baseball Canada's Umpire of the Year. And Canada is a big country with a lot of umpires vying for that title. So this is Lisa, Umpire of the Year. She has represented her home country 9 times at international events, and she's the first woman assigned to work the World Baseball Classic, the WBC, which is supposed to go every 2 years, but was unfortunately canceled because of COVID last year. So keeping our fingers crossed that you'll be carried over to the next World Baseball Classic, Lisa. But your jam is umpire development. And Lisa has been instrumental in setting up programs with local and provincial entities that recruit, instruct, and assign young developing umpires to various events to help them gain in confidence and experience. She's currently a member of the World Baseball Softball Confederation's Umpire Commission, very big deal, and was the first woman selected as director of umpires for the World University Games in Korea in 2017, which she umpired with Sophiyah and Eva, and we'll be talking about at greater length because a lot happened there that is very applicable to daily life, which we want to draw those inferences that what happens on the field can improve every other area of your life. And Lisa understands that, and she passes that on to young umpires in Canada. She's done that with thousands of them. And she's jump-started the careers and trained more umpires than I've ever dreamed of touching their lives. So thank you, Lisa, for doing that. All of you, all 3 of you. So
thanks, Perry.
I think everybody sort of groks how truly impressive these 3 women are. Here, I'm going to hold up a picture of that very low tech here. Wait a minute, where did it go? There it is. See that? So that's the 3 of you at the 2017 University Games. Is that correct? Okay. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to ask each of you a couple of questions, and you'll have 5 minutes to answer. So that gives you a little wiggle room, but believe me, 5 minutes goes very quickly. So whatever you want to add or ask in response, please feel free. So Lisa, I'm going to start with you with those World University Games in Korea. And I'd like for you to tell us how one male umpire's skepticism about your abilities, which we've all faced, not just one, how one male umpire's skepticism about your abilities turned into admiration because of the way that you approached his bad attitude, and why creating allies out of adversaries is so crucial to our acceptance normalization, and progress in umpiring, which has been pretty glacial up until the last 15, 20 years. So you and I have a unique perspective on, pre-exciting times and post, which we are now in right now, largely because of the efforts of you, Sophiyah and Eva. So please tell us about that tournament.
Thanks, Perry. And I'm just going to start off by thanking everyone for having us here. It's kind of nice for Eva and Sophiyah and I and you to connect again, but what a great opportunity to give voice to our stories and for other people to hear them and for seeing this as a valuable part of sport. So thank you to you and Leslie and Kat and everybody from the committee and the group to just allow this forum to take place. It's really a great opportunity to tell our stories. And, when listening to some of the things that we've done, and as well as your resume too, Perry, which is quite accomplished, think about some of the things that we've all accomplished with barriers and obstacles in our way. And, these people are joining your conference all weekend, Women in Baseball. Can you imagine what women and people could do if we were able to remove some of these barriers and obstacles? Despite that, we still accomplished this. Can you imagine if we had some of those barriers removed, what our resume would look like? And that's certainly the theme of this. What can we do for the future? How can we help to remove those barriers and obstacles for the girls and women coming behind us? And who knows what they're going to be able to accomplish. So that's just something that I always marvel when I hear the resumes of everyone. And we know that there's been challenges. How did we manage to accomplish all of that? And what can we do for the future to make that path a little bit easier for those coming behind us? So thank you for that great introduction. And I'm super happy to tell this story. It was an interesting reflection for me, and sort of the power of this story after. Eva, Sophia and I had the opportunity to go to the World University Games. Now, WBSC has had a woman umpire at every level of their tournaments, including the Premier 12. And I think Sophia even did an exhibition game for the Premier 12 as well. So they had a woman work the tournament, as well as Sophia has done an exhibition game prior to the Premier 12. So every level from 12U up to Premier 12, including Women's World Cup. So the University Games is a men's baseball tournament, and the participants they only have a male baseball division. There's a softball, but not women's baseball. So I was assigned as the umpire director. I had supervised the year before in South Korea, and Eva and Sophia were there. So we had been together. This was the second year in a row. But that tournament was umpired by predominantly women, which is a switch from my very first inaugural tournament in 2004 in Edmonton, Canada. There was only 3 of us women, all from Canada, and the rest of the umpires were men. And when you and Sophia, Perry, were in Florida, there was only, I think, 3 men. It was the exact opposite. Most of the umpires were women, which was a great change. So being assigned to this tournament, we now had not just 1 female umpire attending, we had 2, and this was the first time. Plus me as the director was a woman. And sorry, I'm puppy sitting. My puppy is excited. I think we have lots of squirrels in Canada, and a squirrel just ran by. Sorry, everyone. So
No problem.
Just like umpiring, I got to stay focused and not be distracted by what's going on around me.
Here you go.
So what a great event. So history making, and I know there was a lot of eyes on us, like that very first tournament. And that's cute. Toby might be arguing my balls and strikes. So a lot of eyes were on us to see how we were going to perform. And I remember that at the very first tournament, doing the very first gold medal game. You want to show you're getting this chance to do it, and you want to show them I can do this, but you know that there's a little bit of pressure for the people who put you in that place, because they're the ones who advocated for us to go and said they can do this job, and we didn't want to let them down. So I know that was maybe a little bit of extra pressure that we put on ourselves to go and do the best we can. And it was an amazing opportunity. We were able to say, you guys are part of history with us. They're umpiring with Sophia and Eva on the field. I was working with them. So it was really a great opportunity. Before the tournament started, there was an umpire group who, I was shown this later, who had expressed, how can we possibly have a woman umpire director? There's never been a woman umpire director. Women can't be the supervisor of the tournament. This will be a disaster. And this was brought to me by Sophia. And I said, but he doesn't know me. He doesn't know that we can do this. He doesn't know that we have the skills and the ability to do this. So we're just going to show him. And rightfully so, as the director, I could have dealt with that head on and just sent him home. That was within my power or right at the time, but that doesn't really create or inspire change. So I took a different approach, and I did my usual thing. I was supervising the games and connecting with the umpires, creating dialogue, doing what we do. And definitely it started off a little bit timid. And I know through some of Sophia's stories that she shared that there's a tradition in Taiwan, and Perry knows from being there, that women on the baseball field are bad luck. They don't like us touching the baseballs. They don't like us being on the field. So you can imagine now I'm in Taiwan, which I'd umpired there before with Perry, trying to convince them that not only do we belong on the field touching the baseballs, but also being in charge. And so each day, more and more of them would come and ask me, or, hey, how did you handle that? Or what happened here? And it changed. So I didn't even have to seek them out to have a conversation. They were seeking me out. And just through my knowledge and experience, I was able to convince them that I belonged and I was a deserving recipient of being in charge of the tournament. So as the week went on, we're coming to the end of the weekend, at the end of the week of the games. And I had said to this umpire who I knew had written this about me, how did you enjoy your experience this week umpiring at the university games with men, with women, woman director? What are your thoughts? And Sophiyah was translating for me and she looked at me with a half smile. I go, no, go ahead, say it. So she asked him, and it was interesting, his response back. And he said, I've had a great time. This has been great. And I said, well, if it's been so great umpiring with men and women, I said, you're going to be a really great person to speak up when people say, hey, should we have women umpire? Can women be in charge? And he said, they wouldn't let me umpire in the Chinese professional league because I'm too short. What does that have to do with my calls? If I make the right call, shouldn't I be able to umpire there? And I was like, exactly. Does it matter if you're tall or short or man or woman or what, however you define yourselves in between? Doesn't matter if you're doing the job. And I said, well, this is your job now to make sure that there's space for all of those people who are too tall or too short or too this or too that or whatever, and make a space for them. And so Sophiyah and I kind of had a little smile after, and I wasn't fully convinced yet, because I thought to myself, I am the director. I am part of WBSC. Maybe he's just saying what it is that he needs to say to me. Fair enough. But after the medal games, the umpires were in the locker room and he had brought his daughter, and his daughter was going around the locker room and kind of shouting, and we didn't know what she was saying. And someone said, oh, does she want to be a player? And he looked at us and said, no, she's making out calls. She wants to be the umpire. She wants to be the umpire. So maybe he was now seeing the game through his daughter's eyes, which enabled him to see the game through Sophiyah, Eva, and my eyes, and Perry's eyes. It changed his perspective. So I did ask Sophiyah a little follow-up, how did that go after? Because my real goal in going through this sort of a little bit exhausting process was to create allies. So if you go back to the first day, I could have just called him out and said, you're being a jerk. Why did you write that? You don't know me. But in the end, I think putting the work in, although it was a bit more work for me, creating an opportunity to have an ally, maybe leave an ally for Sophiyah, or for other women, or maybe his daughter. Maybe we're going to find out about her in the future, that it's changed his mind. And I know it's not always our responsibility to create an ally, but in the end, it was totally worth it. And if that helps Sophiyah or any other women coming behind us, then that whole week of trying to do that and show them was totally worth it. So
it absolutely will help. And so important that you pointed out the counter intuition that is so much a part of umpiring. And one of the things that makes umpiring so challenging and interesting to me, that you have to restrain yourself from doing things that would otherwise be natural, like being throwing a hissy fit because that guy said something mean about you. Instead of that, you approached it in just an incredibly adult and professional way, which is usually the most productive one, not yelling and screaming and throwing a temper tantrum. But yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, because every time you do that, you definitely help make it just a little bit easier for somebody else who's following in your footsteps. And there are a lot of girls and boys probably who are doing that. So thank you. So I'm going to go on to Eva, because I want to ask you about that same tournament in Korea. Something happened when Lisa talked to you as a supervisor that gave you an insight into a certain dynamic of the game, which umpires have to be aware of, because there's a lot about umpiring that involves what's called game management. As you know, it's not just calling fair, foul, safe, out, ball, strike. It's much more than that. It's a very Zen experience, and something that Lisa said to you helped you have an insight into what was happening in the present time that may have prevented something really bad from happening a little in the future. And so instead of having to, eject 4 or 5 players and maybe somebody getting hurt because they started a fight or something, you did what's called taking charge, which is a big thing for women and girls. I was not a take charge person as a young girl or a young adult. I wasn't raised to take charge. I was raised to be pleasant and witty and charming. And I'm sure everybody that's ever umpired knows that doesn't work on the ball field, not even for women who are basically charming and witty. So I would love for you to talk about that incident in that game in Korea, and tell us how keeping the players from getting injured or ejected is an important but invisible skill, what I call an invisible skill of umpiring, and how you have been able to develop that skill and translate it to your daily life with your relationships with your friends and your family.
Oh, okay. First of all, this is my honors to work with Lisa and Sophiyah in Korea. During the game, I earn a lot and they teach me a lot. For Lisa, I much appreciate for her patience to teach me the angle and the leading edge for make a good call for the tap play. This is really very important, and this is also an invisible skill that should teach me.
Absolutely.
And also before every game we have an umpire meeting. So I remember on 2017, the university's game, during the umpire meeting, Lisa predict there will be something happen during the game. And she requests us to be careful, concentrate on the game. And she told us how to control the crowd of people or player while they ran out from the dugout. But at that game, I'm the first base umpire. And that is really true. There's something happened because a ejection called by the place by the Sri Lanka umpire. And then all the player run out from the dugout. Totally, they run out for 2 times. I'm the smaller size and the only woman in the field, but I don't afraid because Lisa already told us in advance there will be something happen, and then how to handle that situations. And then fortunately, this game still keep going on to the end, and we are lucky. Nobody fighting. So I'm very appreciate Lisa's to teach me in advance how to control the crowd of people, and she told us very useful word, no más. In Spanish, that means no more.
Yes.
Stop. Yes, that's very useful.
I could say a few other Spanish words, but I won't. So.
And I'm very appreciate Lisa during the university game. She assigned me for a place for a very important game. It's a Taiwan versus Korea. Finally, I swapped to other position in the second base. But at that moment, I really want to say that I'm really very happy and appreciate instead of hard feeling, because I know that Lisa recognize and respect my ability and to assign me to a very important game. And thank you, Lisa. And she teach me a lot. And also, Lisa share her experience and repeat to point out what we should do during the game. No matter how old and year of service we have and gender, she treats us fair to each others. And beside the baseball, she shared her own experience and we talked deeply after the game, and she support me a lot. That is what I learned from Lisa.
We are
And
definitely
also,
a Lisa Turbitt Mutual Appreciation Society. Lisa. And yeah,
yeah,
you're talking about things that are so important to excellent umpiring, and it goes way beyond what you do out on the field. It goes to preparation, it goes to emotional preparation, as well as familiarity with the physical area that you're going to be working in, and so much of that is unseen, and I think very underappreciated by most people who watch the umpires out there and make judgments about our capabilities based on a very limited set of parameters. So I'm just so appreciative of your pointing that out, Eva, how much of it goes so far beyond just what people see umpires actually doing out there on the field, and how much of that hinges on the support that you get from your partners and your supervisors. And that, contrary to what, I don't know, so if people think about it at all, you know, they might think of umpiring as a very cutthroat kind of business or avocation, and it can be. You know, umpires want to get to the next level, get the next better game, blah blah blah. And you know, some umpires think that by stepping on another umpire or bad mouthing a partner, they will advance a little farther. But I got to tell you, I have never worked with another woman ever, and I'm talking 40 years, probably now hundreds of women. And in the first 10 in the first 20 years, it was maybe 5 or 6, but now it's hundreds. I have never worked with a woman umpire that was not just, you know, the most supportive and the most encouraging to other women, and welcoming and embracing and willing to go beyond and, you know, take the other person under their wing and help them and help them get better. And that's just so important. And it's like an old boys club, except it's a girls club, and it's a great club to be in. So thank you so much for explaining that. It helps to humanize umpires to a lot of people, which is important in helping people who just watch baseball games to appreciate what umpires do out there, especially what we do out there, we umpires. So thank you, Eva. That sounds like it was a great experience, and I'm sorry I wasn't there. So Sophiyah, I touched on the fact that you are Superwoman, and you worked an entire 2-week tournament in the blazing Florida sun in 2018 with a broken arm that you incurred when you stumbled and fell the night before the tournament started. And you actually did get treated for it, but it didn't become clear that it was broken until after you had finished working the tournament. So I would like to know, was it an internal pressure that made you want to stay? Did you think that if you left, it would be sort of a sign of weakness on your part, or did you just like being there with me so much that you couldn't bear to leave?
Hi. First of all, I want to say hi to everyone, and I'm so honored to participate in this conference. Thank you again. And and I'm so appreciate that Perry take good care of me during the tournament. And the reason I insisted to stay in the tournament because I don't know how to explain how difficult for a woman to become the first female umpire in Taiwan, how difficult it was. So even I have to lose my I have to stay in the tournament because I just cannot give up the opportunity. Yeah. At the first beginning, baseball is the most popular sport in Taiwan, and we call it a national tournament, national sport. So in Taiwan, if a Taiwan team, national team lose in Olympic, even our president will come out and apologize to our people. So we take baseball as a very, very serious because there's a history background because Taiwan was colonized by Japan before. So only by baseball, we can beat Japanese, we can beat other people. So baseball is very honored sports in Taiwan still now. And so
really a matter of national identity. Wow.
So yeah, and also the political problem. We were threatened by other country. They gonna start a war. So and people don't recognize Taiwan as an independent country. Yeah, so baseball tournament is the only way that Taiwan being seen by global. So baseball is very meaningful to us. Yeah. So me too. Since I was brought up, I just watch baseball with my parents. Baseball is most important event in my family as well. And but I don't know why it's so difficult to participate in baseball. I mean, baseball is very, very popular in Taiwan, but skirts not allowed. Yeah. So at the beginning, I was volunteer for Little League. I love baseball. I love kids, and I have no chance to play baseball, so I become a volunteer. And as you know, everyone when you go to see baseball game, everyone yelling at the umpires, right? Me too. So I was yelling at the umpires and say, "I can do better than you." Yeah. So, but of course, nobody believed in me because there's no women umpire in Taiwan. So. But there's a turning point. Guess what year I became a baseball umpire? In 2006. Lisa, when did you come to Taiwan to umpire? In 2006. Yes, there was a WBC Women's World Tournament in Taiwan, and Lisa was the championship plant umpire, right? So who can tell me that women cannot be a plant umpire? Who says so? So I decided to become I went to the clinic, but I have to say it was very, very tough because they say girls not allowed. So they tried to ask me to quit, say here is not belong to you. And after the clinic, I tried to umpire some game in our local tournaments, and they say, oh, some people give me opportunity, but some people just tell me directly that, hey, this chair is for you because you are not allowed to touch ball, touch their gear, and if you sit other chairs, we dare not to sit on it, so you can only sit on this chair. Yeah. And when I want to be a plant umpire, and they say, yeah, it's not allowed because this gear never designed for women. And some people try to help me. There's some umpire try to help me. So there was an umpire said that if you want to be a plant umpire, we can hire a bad boy. What for? Because the bad boy can carry the baseball for me. So when I try to be a plant umpire and he can throw the ball to the pitch or catcher, So I will not touch the baseball. So maybe I can be a plain umpire. Yeah. But he really want to help me, but that was my situation. That was, I have to say, it was amazing. I don't know why it happened to me. And sometimes I was very angry because any umpire miss on the call, they can yelling at me. It's all your fault. I say, what did? I did nothing. I just sit here. And they say, I saw a woman on the baseball field. I know I missed the call because you touched the bat. Did you? I say, yeah, I just cleaned the dust. And that's all your fault. No wonder I missed the call. So that is the situation I was then. And so if you ask me why I umpire even my arm broken, because my director told me that you can go to international tournaments not because you are a good umpire, because you speak English. So if I can find some people speak English better than you, I will not lend you to umpire WBC game. Yeah, so you know my feeling. I have to. That could be my last tournament. So I have to umpire it. So yeah, that's why I insist.
That seems to be a running theme with a lot of women. We get told, no, you can't. And we say, oh, yes, we will. And we do.
And you know what? And in your country, America and Canada, everywhere you see toilet. But for me, especially near, in a very local baseball park, there are only multiple toilets. So there's no place for me to change. So usually when I go umpire games, I have to wear something like swimming suit and undershirts, long sleeve, and also my pants. And that's how I can change my gear. And so usually, sometimes, especially in summer, you have been to Taiwan, it's very humid, very hot, right? So sometimes I have to suffering the uveitis and dermatitis, my skin. And it's so difficult. Sometimes it's very difficult for me to go to toilet. So I dare not to drink too much water. So my parents love me very much and they support me very much. So my mother say, maybe I can buy some diaper for you if you want. When I umpire some game, they say, maybe you can consider to use diapers. I told my mom, well, that's too early. That's too early. So I asked them, sometimes I ask about the toilet and they will say that's your problem.
Yeah, your problem.
We don't have this problem. That's your problem. If you don't want it, you can click.
Wow.
So that's why now I run the NGO in Taiwan, because I have to talk to our government, that it's our right to pee. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Especially at my age.
Yeah. So
when I gotta go, I gotta go.
So I'm so happy to join this conference, and I'm so happy to meet other female umpires. That's very, very meaningful. The first of all, I told you about in 2006, Lisa, umpire in Taiwan, inspired many girls. And also, I'm so happy that I umpire WBC tournament in Korea, and she is the first female director, and she did tremendous job. I mean, she really put her heart to conduct us, support us, and give us advice workable. Not just because you go around very ugly. No, that's this kind of advice. She told me how to improve my skill and share my experience. That is so important. And to show other men, especially probably in my country, hey, you see, there's a female director. No, not mentioned to, she did great job in university game in Taiwan. So when people question me and I say, hey, you see the WBSC female baseball director, okay? Gender is not the problem. So that's so important for role models. So what we do tonight, I mean, in the room, right? It's so important because somebody have to do first, somebody have to do role model. And if we stand on the baseball field, show all the girls, we here, you can be here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And there couldn't be three better role models than you three. Thank you. So, Eva, getting back to you. And by the way, thank you, both of you, Sophia and Eva. I know if I tend to start speaking very quickly and waxing poetic, and you kind of have to turn me off. So if I do that, please ask me to slow down. But I want to thank both of you for particularly for joining us because you speak English so well and are willing to speak English. Not many of us are speak more than one language. So it's very impressive that both of you have worked so hard to learn to speak English so well so that you can learn umpiring techniques and then take them back to Taiwan and Hong Kong and teach umpires there, which is very important. So Eva, when you work international tournaments, the language barriers can sometimes pose a unique problem. We sometimes get translators, but sometimes not. And so those can result in some pretty hilarious exchanges during competitions. So you had a particular experience with a Sri Lankan umpire whose understanding of a certain Spanish word was very different from its meaning in his native language. And how is adapting to working with different partners when you have to account for language barriers, cultural differences, things like that? How is that an important part of an important component of umpiring and learning to work with different partners? Because unlike in the major leagues, the four of us do not work with a crew all the same time all year round. We work with a constantly changing and evolving cast of characters. So we have to be flexible and learn to adapt. So if you could talk about that a little bit and how that helps to improve not just your umpiring skills, but your skills in your daily life, just talking to people and representing umpiring the way you do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yes. Working for an international baseball event, language barriers can pose and will induce some difficulties. But every pronunciation, for example, even the pronunciation is similar, but the meaning will be totally different.
Yes.
I remember on 2017, during the university game, I worked with the Sri Lanka umpire, and Lisa told us that maybe we will hear some pronunciation like puta in the field. That puta, P-U-T-A, puta in the field.
I've heard that word.
Yeah, that was a Spanish, but the meaning is no good. In English, the meaning is called bitches. Bitch.
Correct. It's an insult, particularly targeting women in Spanish.
Yeah, it's no good. It's a bad word. Yes. And the player, they can be rejected if they say this word to us. And Lisa told us that before. But the Sri Lanka umpires told us that the meaning of puta in Sri Lanka is meaning as son, S-O-N, son, S-O-N, son. So he told us, just in case he hear this word in the
Did we lose Eva?
Yeah.
There she is. Okay. You froze
yes.
up. Thank you.
So it's really very strange for the pronunciation can affect for a different result. And Lisa told us in advance to, we are very thank you to Lisa and also Sri Lanka umpire fans Lisa in advance to teach us this special word. Try to avoid some
List of swear words.
yeah, yes. And this word is very useful when we hear this word in the field. We can eject the player.
Yes.
Okay. And also, Lisa teaches very useful word I talked before is the no mask. No mask is very useful. Also, I use this word when I work as an umpire in the universal game, because many players they speak in Spanish instead of English.
Yes.
And also, because when I work with other people, we can't speak. They speak in English, Cantonese. I mean, they speak in English, Chinese, Spanish, Japanese, and Korean. And then it's hard to have a person to know every language. So for an umpire, we have our own body language. So during the P-game umpire meeting, we will compromise the signals that we want to use. So it's very useful. And also during the international game, I try to learn the language from other people. I will pay attention to listen and try to catch the meaning that they want to express to me. And right now, I can communicate with Sophiyah in Chinese. I think she understands what my express. I think she understands my poor Chinese. And I also learned Japanese before. Few years ago, I learned Japanese, so I understand some words. But for Korean, I really have no idea. I just can catch the meaning of the Korean. But I have many senior Korean umpires. They help me a lot, and they teach me a lot. Even we don't understand, we talk about our language, but we can use our body language.
Yes.
Because of that, I pay very attention to listen to others and then to observe their expressions, so I can catch their meaning. And that is really very useful when I work at an international game for baseball.
Another invisible skill. So
Yes, that's right.
yes, you're like Supergirl. You have X-ray vision. You can see into people's souls and know what they're saying, even if you don't understand what's coming out of their mouths. So that's a superpower that umpires have. Great. So, Sophiyah, you have been supported by a couple of corporate entities. One of them is the New York Yankees. I'm definitely curious about that. And a company called All-Star that provides uniforms and equipment, baseball uniforms and equipment. So can you tell us a little bit about how that partnership came about and what impact it's had upon your ability to reach people and have a platform to spread the word about umpiring and recruit young umpires and get the message out that umpiring is not, it's not a job of drudgery and objectification. It's actually a very fun, challenging experience. And that's what makes it's so interesting and wonderful to all of us after so many years. It's not easy getting past the initial hump of, doubting yourself and wondering, when am I ever going to get to the point where people stop yelling at me? And when am I ever going to stop, thinking that I don't deserve to be out there? It's bad enough that other people tell me, but, so there's so much psychological weight that we carry, that umpiring on one hand puts on us, and on the other hand helps us to get rid of, because we come to understand it. Umpiring helps us understand human nature, our own and other people's. So I would like for you to talk about that a little bit, how those two companies have helped you reach other people with that message about umpiring.
Okay, thank you. I tried to become the baseball umpire in 2006 after Lisa visited Taiwan. And I have to say it was so difficult, and seldom do I have a chance to umpire because people not so welcome to me. I mean the umpires. So even I carry my gear to the baseball park, and I asked for the local chief umpire. I say, you don't have to pay me anything. I'm willing to be a volunteer. Can I umpire here? Can you give me a chance to practice? And the chief umpire in public yelling loudly say, girls, get out. Girls not allowed, get out of the field. Yeah, that's what happened. But some people also gave me some chance, so I have to grab the chance. So I'm very lucky that in 2009, the New York Yankees, there was a base pitcher and catchers clinic in Taiwan, and so 5 coaches, they came to Taiwan, and I was very lucky to be an interpreter for them. And the clinic is about 5 days, and it's so happy that people treat me very bad on baseball field as well. They yelling at me, they ignore me, you know. I say hi and people just see you visible. Yeah. So the coach asked, why they do that to you? Why they yelling at you? They will say, Sophie, go take the water, go bring the water, you know, or don't touch it, something like that. And the coaches, Yankees, ask, why they treat you like that? I say, I guess because I want to be an umpire. Yeah. And they were starving. They think, how could this happen? And it's the first time that people support me in public and directly. So I asked the Yankees, I really want to be a baseball umpire because I want to stay on the baseball field. Maybe a volunteer, interpreter, umpire, whatever. I just want to stay on the baseball field. Why I cannot be a baseball umpire? Can you tell me why? And I was crying, you know, I was brought into tears on the field. I say, why? Can you tell me why women cannot be a baseball umpire? Can you tell me why? You know what? I even asked my director before, why I cannot be a baseball umpire. And my supervisor told me that because you don't have testicles. That's why. I say, well, I really don't have that, but I really don't understand. So when Yankees, when I
as if that were a requirement.
And after my emotional, you know, my tears, I wept my tears, and the Yankees asked me, "Are you serious? You want to be a baseball umpire?" And I say, I don't know what level I can reach, but I just want to be in the game. Yeah. And the Yankees told me that I suggest you, if you want to be a baseball umpire, you have to take this very serious. You have to work very hard, take good care of yourself, and be an honest umpire. Show your attitude. And I say, okay, they are Yankees. I believe in you. You are major league. And next morning, before the clinic, they tell me, Sophie, come here. I say, what happened? What? And they say, we Yankees, we would like to give you a gift when we leave. I say, what? Yankees sponsor me a customized chief umpire gear, including female protector. I mean, you know, for this in Taiwan, we can find the protect for women.
It's a
put
big issue
under
here in
yeah.
the United States, finding
Correct.
equipment that fits
Yes.
and keeps us safe, especially shoes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was also the issue. It is also a excuse that people say I cannot be a
Yes.
playing umpire. So Yankees say we're going to pay, go to the All-Star factory. They're going to customize your gear. Yeah. So next week I went to the All-Star factory with the Yankees interpreter. They have their own interpreter as well. They say they're going to pay the bill. And then I made the All-Star. He is the vice president of the All-Star, and he is Taiwanese. And he was surprised that women want to be a baseball umpire. And he said, if you need anything, I'm willing to help you. So with the sponsor by Yankees, and I go to umpire abroad, including Hong Kong and Australia. So in the other way, the other side, I'm an author. I publish some books. So it's make me very popular in Taiwan after 2009. Yeah, and become a kind of celebrity. And my story even added into TV drama. My book added into TV drama on HBO. So probably you can watch in United States, North America.
What is the title of it?
The teenage psyches. The teenage psyche. I will give you the link later.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah, and so I become popular and become famous. And of course, I still work very hard as a baseball umpire. So people willing give me more opportunity. And when I went to Australia, their national women's tournament, and after that, I'm appreciated how they help me and give me the opportunity. And they suggest me that, hey, Sophiyah, you should go to the umpire school in States. And when I go back to Taiwan,
you did, and you told me the kind of reception you got there, and it literally turned my stomach. And I just admire you so much for, you know, keeping on in the face of all of that bad behavior from people who had no faith in you, but to have that kind of faith in yourself and that devotion and a sense of purpose about what you're doing. I admire you so much for that, Sophiyah. I really do.
I asked All-Star to sponsor me to go to the umpire school. So I've been there in 2011, 2015, and 2016. And as you say, Perry, there was a umpire. He was very mean to me. I mean, he was very, very mean to me. And when after I become famous, and he came to me on field and in ballpark and told me that, I don't know, maybe I think you love baseball much than me, because what I have done to you, I already quit. So he says something good like that. And I tell that mean person, I say, maybe I will quit baseball, maybe some other reason, but I will not quit baseball because quit my umpire career because of you, because you are not worthy.
Right, we're still here. So we're running short on time, believe it or not. Lisa, I just want to ask you one last thing about the university games. You were the first female supervisor there, and there was you were obviously, you've had a big effect on both Eva and Sophiyah and me, because you are so well versed in the technical aspects of umpiring and mechanics and where to move and how to move and what you want to look like making those motions. But there was something technique you called the pat that I want to hear about briefly, and then we'll take a couple of questions after that.
Great. I'm aware of the time, Perry, so I'll just kind of leave you with a couple things in the little story, the final fun story of the pat. Perry talked a little bit at the beginning about my resume. And when I was a kid, when I was 11 years old, I'm well over 40 years umpiring, I was sent home from the advanced training 2 years in a row as a young girl umpire. Again, some of the obstacles I talked about earlier. But in having the opportunity to travel internationally and meet other women, despite my challenges, which they are, but learning more from Eva and Sophiyah about some of the challenges that they experienced, you can see that University Games was such a huge deal for the three of us to be there, despite Perry and I having umpired there in 2006. They didn't really, they did that tournament for the Women's World Cup, but they didn't really see that there was an opportunity for change and involving girls and women and culturally. And I didn't realize until I connected with Eva and Sophiyah, seeing the game through their lens. We're all women, but there was also a cultural piece. And Sophiyah explained to me that sometimes they would do certain things for me because I was a North American woman versus a woman from there. And so when I talked earlier about creating an ally, I too had to become an ally. And I actually had to stand up to Sophiyah's, the Taiwanese umpire director, and tell him that Sophiyah and Eva were not going to go to a separate locker room. Now, in a perfect world, they would have two separate locker rooms with a common room joining them. That wasn't the case. There was like a shower and another room. So I said, I led the opening meeting, giving a tour. We will take turns in this space. Everybody's dressed, everybody's comfortable. Over here, you can change privately. This is the way it is. And he said to me, he wanted the women umpires to walk through the stadium with their gear on. Because of course, at a big tournament, we want umpires walking through the stadium, through the crowd after a game by themselves to another change room and then come back. And I said, no. I said, this is unacceptable. So it's not even acceptable to send our men umpires who are umpiring through the stadium, through the crowd. But I realized, despite some of the challenges that I have, that maybe there were some ways that I could also help. And that was one, because I know Sophiyah said that they've changed the construction and access to women's washroom, change room in the stadium. And that's a change since Perry and I went in 2006. So, you know, sometimes, and I read through the comments, there are challenges and sometimes it's a pain to look back at some of the things, but in moving forward, some of those pains were worth it because there is small changes. And Sophiyah, and not even just Sophiyah, there's also Xiaoling umpiring in Taiwan, and other women umpires in Hong Kong, like Eva and Sophiyah, are leading this and helping them by lending my voice to theirs to make their voice louder and stronger. 100% I'm for it. I'll leave you on one little final communication story, which was kind of funny. Having the opportunity to work with Eva and Puchen and the other women, I had my own experience, you know, as a young umpire, people yelling at me constantly if I did something wrong. So maybe I bent over backwards to try to explain technical things so that they wouldn't get yelled at. And as long as they listened, I told them as many stories as I could, or many different things. If that was going to help them get yelled at less, help them on the field, help them earn that respect from their counterparts, because they could do the job and I knew they could, but that would create a space for them and people to see how excellent they are. If they don't let you on the field, like they didn't for Sophiyah in the beginning, how do they know how good she is? So creating that space to let them get in there and show them. So I was trying to explain this, and again, we all speak different languages, and my Taiwanese and Chinese are not as good as either of their excellent English. And I was trying to explain about angles and being able to see. And both of them had said, you know, they hadn't been taught this, they hadn't learned this. And I said, we really don't want to be looking at the back, you know, looking at the elbow, looking at, and I'm pointing to my backside. We don't want to look at the back. And I'm trying to explain, go here, do this, da, da, da. And I obviously didn't know the word for my backside, and I'm pointing. And Eva told me in slang, it's called the pat pat. And I'm like, that's right. Okay, no pat pat. And I go, why do you call it that? And she told me that, and Eva can help me if I do it wrong, but that when you hold a baby and then you kind of pat their backside, you know, the mom goes pat, pat, pat. And so that's kind of a nickname for the pat pat. And I'm like, well, okay, no pat pat. And so it just kind of became a little expression throughout the tournament. no pat, and there was many Asian umpires who knew this expression, and so I just tried to jump in and use the term that they would have used. And it was a
Baseball
great
needs more estrogen, definitely.
yeah. So I know I'm going to turn it back over to you, Perry. Obviously, we all have tons more stories to tell, but not enough time. I'm super excited for this little reunion of us and having everybody share in our reunion. And I hope they've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed reminiscing about these stories and you know, our time in Taiwan with you and time with Sophiyah and Eva. And just thanks to SABR for giving us this chance to use our voice, to elevate our voice. So thanks, Perry. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank all of you so very much. And Leslie, do we have time for a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say to you, you can take a little bit of the time because, and if we had a break built in, and
Okay.
so you can take a couple of questions. We're good with time.
All right. Well, I just would like to tell Woody, hey, Woody, you were out 30 years ago at Baltimore Orioles fantasy camp and you're still out. So there you go. But it's nice to see you, a small world. You never know who you're going to bump into 30 years later. And somehow they always remember the bad calls, you know, that just sort of blend into one another for each of us. Not that they happen so frequently, but you know, we understand intuitively that making one bad call or two bad calls does not mean that we are bad people or bad umpires. It is just a sign that we're human and we're not robots. And robots will probably make it to the major leagues before women in this country, unfortunately, because that's just the way baseball is heading. Sort of interesting. You know, that's one thing I would love to see. If they would put the three of you in a cage and evaluate you against a robot umpire and see who comes out with a better accuracy rating, because it's just never been done. And I've actually conducted experiments and drills with girls and boys. So I have observed this on my own. It's not what I would call empirical evidence, but it is observational evidence that something about the way girls' brains are wired enhances our ability to see something that happens very quickly, translate it in our brains and be able to figure it out and make a call that's accurate, especially on these plays at first base called whackers, which are the really close ones where you know, flip a coin as to which is the runner safe or is she out. So yeah, does anybody have any questions? Do you want to unmute yourself and just ask something of any of us? We are definitely here for you. And you know, whether it's a question about our urinating habits and how much of a bother we are because we need bathrooms. Oh, horrors. Oh, wow. Or any
Hey,
other.
Terry, I have a question for you.
Susan.
It's Akisa.
Akisa.
It's Akisa. Hey, so hi.
Nice to meet
Sophie,
you. Nice to meet you again. Konnichiwa.
Yeah, konnichiwa. Maybe I should show myself. I don't know how to have that. Okay,
There you go.
Here you go. So I have a quick question. So as a player, the female player, since we don't have much opportunity to play hardball baseball, often we substitute or okay to play with a softball, right? Just a lot of players do like a cross playing just to keep going as a practice.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of female softball opportunity to play. As an umpire, do you guys, you know, since you seek so much opportunity, so do you think that help umpiring softball would be opportunity or kind of like a practice ground for any of you guys? Just curious about the crossover with
Interesting.
softball.
Frankly, I don't like to switch to softball. It's a totally different game for umpires as well as players. And I'm not trained in softball and I just don't get the same charge out of it as I do out of a baseball game. So if you, Lisa, Sophiyah and Eva, if you want to address that, but for me personally, I don't recommend it and I don't do it. So I like to concentrate on baseball because that's where my skills lie and where I like to improve them. So
I
anybody
think
else?
there's some extra opportunities they have, but it's still not, women officials in softball are still not women dominated.
Yeah,
It's still very dominated by male officials.
absolutely. Yeah.
I think
That
one of the
was
challenges
a question too. Yes, that was question too.
I think
Yes,
they told me
please.
it's about 60-40, 70-30, still male dominated. And one of the things is that a lot of times the women aren't given opportunities to umpire, then aren't given opportunities to elevate and be in charge or be directors or be schedulers. And that's what I said before about creating spaces to let people in and showcase what they can do. So if you have all of us have had a director or a scheduler or supervisor who's not made space to let us in. So then how do we show you how good we are if you don't give us the opportunity? So there's still a challenge. There's more opportunities. The other part that is it's a different sport. I learned how to ref volleyball so I could ref my kids at school. And so it's really like reffing or umpiring a different sport. I know they're similar, but it's a bit like a hockey ref trying to ref, ringette, or a soccer ref trying to ref football. They're similar, but they're not exactly the same. And I know some of our international umpires do ref or umpire both, but they're trained in both. So there are some opportunities, but as Perry said, it's a different game. And, we're all here because we love baseball. So.
What about you, Eva? Is there much softball in Hong Kong?
No, basically I'm umpire for baseball only.
Okay.
But
I wouldn't think
but
so,
right,
because the limited geographical spaces for baseball are so limited that
yeah,
for
it's limited.
to add softball
Yeah.
into the mix would be complicating things.
Yeah. But right now I want to learn more, so I attend a softball umpire training in Hong Kong. I just want to learn a little bit more, and I find that baseball and softball look similar, but basically it's totally different. Even the umpire in the field, they set position, their running position, running path, totally different.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I just
You
learn
stand
more.
outside
only.
the bases in softball? The base umpires
For,
are outside, not on the infield, they're beyond the bases? Is that?
yes, that's right. When the ball is played outfield, you need to inside, and then the ball inside, you need to stay outside. So for softball, umpire need to keep running, always running. Even the field is very small, but keep running. Yeah. So it's totally different. I just want to have more knowledge on softball only. But basically, I really love baseball.
Yeah. No, hey, it's great to expand your horizons, definitely. And none of us has any animus towards softball. But we just, that's our province, and that's what we focus on. And what about?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask Sophia how much
Sophie,
softball
please.
in Taiwan.
No, I think that baseball is too much to learn. I just want to be a good baseball umpire, try to be a good one. So too much to learn. I cannot do something else.
Right.
Yeah. So I think I love to hear that umpire who knows the rules and games from their perspective, saying that those are two different sports, because so often as a player, we're told, well, if I don't have opportunity to play baseball, why don't you play softball? And then I'm with you guys that I love baseball. I love interested in playing baseball. There's like an international tournament in Columbus, Ohio, like thousands of softball players, but there's nobody wants to play, the women play baseball. And I cannot switch because in our perspective, those are different sports. So it is good to hear. And then I'm encouraging you all umpires to say, well, those are two different sports. Don't, give us a substitute just because we're women,
People do tend to conflate them. And I find that very annoying. Not like I said, because I have anything against softball, but it's just not baseball. And
Yeah.
baseball is not softball. And we are all
Well-
very conscious of that. And by the way,
Yeah, thank you.
Akisa, for those of you who don't know, Akisa plays baseball herself. She comes down to Fort Myers and plays with the Red Sox fantasy camp. So are you going to be
Yeah.
there in January, Akisa?
No, well, I'm just worried about the COVID right now. So let's
Well, who
wait and
knows
see.
by then, yeah, what will
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
remember all your calls, Perry. So good or bad, I remember all your calls. So that stay with me. So, but
They
anyway,
were all the right
they're all
call.
good. Yes, they're all right.
So
Thank you.
Leslie, how are we doing on time?
I think we're going to take this moment to say thank you to all of you and really, really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. If you've been paying attention to the chat, and we can copy that and save it for you. Lots and lots of good comments, but we have learned a great deal today and realize how far we have come and how far we still have to go. And I think for me, the takeaway from all of this is the importance of mentorship, the importance of being there for others and doing our parts. And so thank you all so much. And thank you, Perry, for putting this all together. So we really, really appreciate all of you
My privilege.
taking the time to being with us today.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it. Jean Ardell, hi there.
So thank you,
Hi,
Sophia
hi.
and Eva and Lisa and Perry. We really, really appreciate it.
All right, and thank
Good
you
to
for
see everybody. I would only add, Perry, is this going to be published in some form? It's too good to just leave.
We're Jean, we're recording all. We're recording all
Yeah,
of it.
but I'd love to see a publication on this panel. It was just terrific.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Say hi
Yeah.
to Dan.
Will do, will do.
Okay.
He's behind you, you know that.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yep. All right.
Thank you,
Good work.
everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Perry.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. We
All
really
right.
appreciate it.
Sweet dreams,
you.
Eva, Sophia.
Bye, Even, Sophia.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you both.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, Leslie.
Sure thing.
All right. Happy birthday, Kat.
Happy birthday. 生日快乐.
Happy birthday.
All right. Thanks, everybody.